Sergei Alexandrovich Karaganov, who is far from the last person in Russian structures, said in an interview with our colleague, Tucker Carlson, that it would be absolutely undesirable, but it is quite possible to throw a nuclear bomb on the European continent, and he would choose Germany. Could you comment on these words of Comrade Karaganov? Well, I will not comment on these words of Comrade Karaganov. The only person who can manage our nuclear arsenal is the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the President of the Russian Federation. Our nuclear doctrine is an open document. Everything is clearly spelled out there. We update it periodically, and it exists. It's publicly available, so you can read everything there. As for the hypothetical proposal from Greenland and Iceland, as I understand it, to conclude a mutual assistance agreement with the Russian Federation. You know, I don't see any conditions that would allow such a probability to be assumed. And I don't think anyone in Newark or Reykjavik is thinking about this topic. And in principle, the logic of your question is going a bit in the wrong direction. It turns out that you want these poor territories, one that the United States will take away now, and the second, which will be next, so that they run to us for help. But we are not talking about the fact that someone did not help them, Russia or China or anyone else. We are talking about the fact that they are members of the North Atlantic Alliance, and this alliance is currently being tested for what it is. Therefore, how should I put it? We are not at all interested in interfering in someone's affairs. If we talk about Greenland, then this is part of the problem associated with the consequences of the colonial era. Since the 13th century, Greenland has been a colony of Norway. Then, from the 18th century, and at the beginning of the first half of the 20th century, it was a Danish colony. And it wasn't until about the middle of the last century that an agreement was signed that it was already part of Denmark, not as a colony, but as an associated territory that was associated with the European Union. But, basically, Greenland is not a natural part of Denmark, right? It was neither a natural part of Norway nor a natural part of Denmark. It was a colonial conquest. The fact that the residents there are now used to it, and they are comfortable, is another matter. But the problem of former colonial possessions is becoming more and more serious. According to the UN registry, there are currently 17 territories in the world that are either devoid of sovereignty or are directly dependent on the governing powers. France, contrary to the resolutions of the UN General Assembly, continues to hold the island of Mayotte, which, according to all decisions of the World Organization, is part of the state of the Comoros. Britain continues to hold the Malvinas Islands, also violating numerous resolutions of the UN General Assembly. Britain also holds the Mauritian island of Chagos, an archipelago. There are also many other examples, such as French Polynesia, New Caledonia, and the Ypres Islands, which remain in the possession of the French Republic. So these questions will also arise in the future. And it is not for nothing that we, within the framework of the Group of Friends in Defense of the UN Charter, have taken a very important initiative to conduct a campaign. If you want, within the framework of the United Nations, a campaign to clean up all traces left from the colonial era. And as I have already said, on December 14th of each year, on our initiative, the United Nations will celebrate the day against all manifestations and forms of colonialism. And as for Greenland specifically, you know, I've written out some quotes here specifically. For example, the President of Croatia, Mr. Milanovic, in my opinion, he is such an experienced and far-sighted politician. He called on President Trump not to put his interests above the rights of the people of Greenland. Quote, I emphasize that the decision on the future of Greenland can be made exclusively by the Greenlandic people. Put the people of Crimea in the place of the Greenlandic people, and probably a lot will become clear to you. Moreover, in Crimea, people went to a referendum after an unconstitutional coup d'etat, when the putschists who came to power declared war on the Russian language and sent militants to storm the Supreme Council of Crimea. And in Greenland, no one staged any coups. As President Trump said, this territory is important for the security of the United States. Crimea is no less important for the security of the Russian Federation than Greenland is for the United States. And of course, when they justify what is happening around Greenland by the fact that otherwise, Russia or China will seize it, well, there is no such evidence. And economists and political scientists in the West are already refuting them. And by the way, Mrs. Annalena Baerbock, who is currently the President of the General Assembly, she also stated that the people of Greenland have made their position very clear. We are talking about their right to self-determination. Well, when they say such things, they should have thought at least one step forward or one step back, and remembered what they said about the right to self-determination of the people of Crimea, Donbass and Novorossiya. But in any case, we assume that we have nothing to do with this issue. Of course, we are watching. This is a serious geopolitical situation, and we will draw conclusions based on the results of solving this problem. Colonialism was mentioned, and the problems of island states were mentioned. In this case, we want to give the floor to a representative of the British media. Please, Sky News. By the way, Maria said the word Britain. And without any offense, I think Britain should be called Britain, because great. Britain is the only example when a country calls itself great. It calls itself like that. Another example was the Libyan Jamahiriya, but it no longer exists. Please, no offense. Thank you. I'm not holding a grudge. Sky News. The question pro Greenland. You said that there is no evidence that Russia and China are attacking Greenland. But this is not an answer to Donald Trump's question. He said it was a threat to Greenland. My question is the following. Is Russia a threat to Greenland? Do you have plans to take over Greenland? And if not, how would you respond to Trump's desire to seize this island? Will you support him or not? Regarding the issue of colonialism, what Russia is doing in Ukraine, how does it differ from the colonialism that you are speaking out against here? Russia has annexed Crimea. You are currently trying to take over the 4 eastern regions by force. How different is this from colonialism? As for Greenland, I've already said everything. We have nothing to do with plans to take over Greenland. I have no doubt at all that Washington is well aware that Russia and the People's Republic of China have no such plans. That's not our question. Our question, first of all, is that we are interested in establishing open, free Arctic cooperation within the framework of the Arctic Council, where the interests of security, economy, environment, indigenous peoples, and all participants in Arctic cooperation, the Arctic Council, would be taken into account. It wasn't us who stopped cooperating in this structure. It wasn't us who broke off contacts. And, by the way, the United States is interested in resuming discussions within the Arctic Council, unlike some Europeans, although these contacts remain on a technical level. Therefore, Greenland, many of our citizens did not know what it was at all, until suddenly Greenland occupied the front pages of the media. Well, decide this within the North Atlantic Alliance. I say again, we will see how this issue is resolved. About colonialism, well, we have many proverbs that apply to the question you asked. But, you know, when Joe Biden met with Vladimir Putin in June 2021, and this meeting began in a narrow format, only Blinken and yours truly were present, and Biden delivered his opening speech without notes or texts. And he literally said the following there, that the United States and Russia are 2 great powers. We are not better than you, we are not worse than you, we are just different. The United States was created as a result of the migration of such semi-criminal elements from England. They settled in their territory, they solved the Indian problem. Then there were the problems of slavery and migration. And all those who came to the United States, starting with the English immigrants, they all went to the melting pot. And there they were melted down into Americans, regardless of their ethnic or other origin. And then they came out of this melting pot with an